Hi, welcome to the Investment Blueprint. I'm your host, Raghu Kumar from Rain. The Investment Blueprint is a podcast where I interview traders, investors, quants, and finance professionals in the space of retail trading and investing with the goal of helping pass on their knowledge to you. Today, I interview Prateek Singh from LearnApp. I've known Prateek for almost a decade now, and one thing about Prateek is that he dies and breathes the stock markets. He started trading very early, and he has a strong appreciation for algorithmic trading. LearnApp, a startup he started a few years ago, is an EdTech company with a vision to impart real world skills, practical education, and insight driven learning. It aims to become the world's largest video education platform with more than 100 million monthly active learners on its platform by 2026. So, Prateek, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Raghu, thanks for inviting me. Super excited to do this.
Awesome, awesome. So, let's start with your general kind of trading background. How did you get introduced to trading and investing?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know the story, but I'll say it. I was born and brought up in Abu Dhabi, and then I moved to Africa, Singapore, Malaysia, and then I came to India. And I've said this story so many times, so I'll quickly run through it, right? And when I was here, my dad said, uh, "Beta, you should learn trading." And I've opened an ICICI Direct account for you, and go ahead and start trading. Here's some capital. So he actually gave me the first few thousand rupees to trade with. And then I discovered Investopedia on day one. I discovered a website forum called Trader G, which is really popular at the time. This is 2007, by the way. And I think I was very lucky because I think in the first few months, I understood what a hedge fund is. And I said, okay, this is what I want to be when I grow up and run a hedge fund. And I quickly made it my career goal. And then I also learned about systematic trading from the start. So there was no time in my life when I didn't know what systematic trading was. I've been trying to figure out systematic trading since then. And I think I'm still learning today. It's been a while, but yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So what about the hedge fund space like intrigued you so much?
I'll be honest, right? So, and you guys have to be gentle on me when I say this because I was a kid and I was starting off in the industry. I just saw a lot of people in the Forbes 100 list who were all hedge fund managers. And I said, this looks interesting. I want to pursue this. So I think it was probably greed which got me started in the markets because it just seemed so intriguing. How can these unknown people I've never heard of make so much money from the markets? There must be some method to this because it can't be chance, right? There must be something to it. So to be honest, that's what I found interesting. Is that a fair answer, Raghu?
I think so. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So what about systematic investing? So you probably started off as a discretionary trader, right? Do you remember how you made that switch into systematic investing and trading?
Yeah, I don't remember like I don't think there was a particular day or a year where I completely switched. I think it was always a hybrid. So initially, it was basically going through economic times, reading volume shockers, reading bulk deals, block deals, because I don't remember a website giving that data. But I remember these huge pink sheets of economic times, which you could just go and see FII buying and selling. You could see insider trades. And that was just an amazing piece of information for me because I said, oh, you can actually look into some data and probably make sense out of it. And I've said this previously in some other interviews. I said, I bought Milk Food, which was this company which I still don't know what they do, but they had a lot of volume on a particular day. And it was in a volume shocker list for like a week. And I said, okay, there must be something interesting. I'll just buy and sell it for a 10 paisa profit. And it just made sense to me that if it moves 10 paisa, I can enter and exit. And at some point, it will give me a 10 paisa profit. And I did that. I remember it was a profit. And then soon I realized that there are things like slippage and taxes and brokerage and all those other things. And the 10
The
paisa
real world,
actually,
yeah.
the real world. And that's not actually a profit. So that was my first trade.
Got it. Got it. So, obviously, a lot of the listeners, to this podcast are probably interested in systematic trading and data-driven trading and investing, right? What are some good like first steps for someone to incorporate data into their trading decisions and kind of become like a data-driven investor?
Oh, wow. That's actually a really good question. I don't think anyone has asked me that before. Okay. So, trading based on an algorithm can get really complex really fast. Because when you reach a certain level, you'll realize the execution is what needs to be perfected, not the system. And Raghu knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? The timing it enters, the slippage you get, et cetera, et cetera. But let's talk about the first steps, like you said. What's the first step that you should do? So I think the basic step is for you to understand how algorithmic trading or data driven trading actually works. And a simple way to do that is just to have a simple moving average strategy, right? So have a notebook and pen, use a 200 DMA or 100 MA or some moving average, it doesn't matter what, and select some top 10 market cap stocks. And just have a simple system where you buy when you go above the moving average and you exit maybe when it closes below it, just to understand the psychology of what data driven system trading is. And you can manually do this over the last maybe 5 years if you're looking at a weekly chart, and then just understand what the entry exits look like. I think that is a great first step to understand the kind of methodical thinking you need to understand what a stock is. For example, a lot of people say, what stock do I pick? That question is incorrect. The moment you pick a stock, you've inherently biased your trading system. So your system must have a way to find a stock for you. So you could pick probably the first top 10 market cap stocks, or the stocks that have moved up the highest in the last 2 weeks, etc., etc. Some logic that allows you to select stocks, and you shouldn't do the selection yourself. Does that make sense, Raghu? Maybe that's a great
That
way
makes
to
a lot of
start.
sense. Obviously, it's a great example because I think that's it's actually a very nice way to begin. Makes a lot of sense. So, one thing I wanted to kind of also ask you is, you're obviously involved with like, education and promoting, financial literacy. How did that begin, right? Because there's two things that I always associate with you. There's trading and investing, and there is, growing financial literacy in India and maybe around the world, right? How did you get so passionate about like, growing financial literacy levels?
Yeah, so I think it's my own background in education, right? My education has been very scattered. I studied from various countries, then repeated multiple classes and had breaks in between. And I sort of realized how important like structured thinking is and how education brings that. So I always had that stance that someone should sort of fix education, right? Generally. And I think we even tried to start something called Grade Up, etc., and try to do just general education. But then there was also this passion of just trading because that's literally the only skill I really know, right? How to trade and invest. And then I realized that I spent all these 10 years, and to be honest, there were only certain skills that I could have learned in a much shorter period if someone just told me, right? Instead of not wasting, but spending all those years and that long learning curve to actually learn something. So, what if someone could shorten that learning curve to just take control of your money? So, I guess at some point in my life, these two things came together. And I think there was a Mumbai based broker which I worked with. Up stocks. It was RKS United, and we started Trade Academy, which was pretty similar. And now there's LearnApp, which is also similar, but then has changed many things in the aspect. But the idea, like Raghu said, is the same. If everyone can take control of their finances and learn how to invest in trade, then they are at a much better position to have free time in the future versus exchanging their time for money, which is a job. You also want to do something which generates cash even while you're sleeping. So I think it's a basic life skill that everyone should at least know how basic investing works. So yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So for those of you who didn't pick up on what Prateek was talking about there, Prateek basically spent a couple of years, with our KSV stocks, and actually more than a couple of years, and that's how I got to know him. So he's very passionate about trading and education. So that's how he's really kind of known to the outside world. So let's talk about LearnApp, right? How did you eventually start LearnApp, and what is it all about?
Yeah, so I think the route to actually get to an idea and execute it, I think all us entrepreneurs know it's not like an epiphany you get one day and then you just start building it. I think it's iterative and it evolves over a period of time. So we won't get into that story. But what LearnApp is and what we're trying to solve is, I think, what the question is, right? So the idea is, what if the best minds in the world could be accessed and could actually teach you? I found that thing very interesting. I also think in the future, all education is going to be online. So right now we call it EdTech and online tech, but just like Xerox is a proxy for photocopying and everyone calls it Xerox, no one's going to call it online education. It's just education, because at some point it'll become a lot better and more efficient than actually physically going to an industry for people who are above an age of, say, 24 or 25. See, below that, it makes sense to go to a college, meet people, network, etc. But once you're doing a job, right, Raghu, and you'll agree with this, the world is changing so freaking fast. If you are not able to upgrade every year or every 6 months, you'll be left behind. So we've started with finance, and we might move into other subjects in the future. But if I can learn from the smartest minds in the world to teach me online and get a skill is different from education. A skill is writing a personal finance plan. A skill is being able to hedge my position if the market moves away. A skill is to know whether the market is overvalued or undervalued at today's levels, right? A skill is able to push you forward and improve your life, which is different from education. That's what LearnApp is doing. So we do three things. You get a leader, a top 1% person to come and teach you. So a person who manages 100 crores or 1,000 crores comes and teaches you online. We have workshops running every single day. We have courses by these amazing, amazing people. The second thing we do is we give you a structured map so you can follow a system. You go from beginner all the way to advanced. And third, it costs really less. You pay about 325 rupees a month to access all
Wow,
30 workshops a month and all 40, 50 courses that we've built, and we keep adding to the library. So it's a no-brainer thing for you to get. So that's what LearnApp is.
that's really cool. So, like through your experience with LearnApp, you've been able to interact with a lot of amazing traders and investors, right? Through this process, if you had to kind of highlight some common skill sets or traits amongst these guys, right, or gals, what would that be?
Yeah, I can say this right off the bat, right? So I think all of them have these things in common. One thing is that none of them are assholes. I've seen it personality-wise. Once you become good at your job and you're successful, just there's this humility as part of their personality that I always normally see. But the three traits as a trader, let's talk about that. One thing is that they have a super simple way to approach the markets. So we kind of think that we have to do a lot of analysis like a hedge fund, crunch tons of data, have data scientists like Renaissance Technology does, and then you can make money. With my experience with even hedge fund managers managing billions of dollars, it's not true. They just have a simple strategy to approach the market, and they do that. So it's super simple. The second thing is they're very consistent. So if they go through a 3 month, 6 month drawdown, that's a loss making time, they will continue to trade that no matter what. Now just put yourself in your shoes, right? Imagine the market's going up and it's making highs every day. Your neighbor's making money, but your trading system isn't. Will you really have the mental fortitude to continue? And that's super difficult, right? But these guys, Raghu, I met this guy who's managing $2 billion, and he runs basically 6 trading systems. This is a true story. And two of his systems have up to a 2 year drawdown,
Wow.
right? I
Yeah.
I can definitely not deal with that. I'm
Yeah.
sure Raghu can't either. A 2 year drawdown is just, I just can't imagine. And this guy's hedging, he's shorting futures, etc. I found that, but he's okay with it. So I think it's also about your personality. But anyway, so that's the second thing. They're able to block out the noise and just focus on the system for a long period of time. I also feel this is true for basketball, Raghu. This is true for any other skill, right? Are you able to block out everyone else and just focus on what you want and what you
Mhm.
believe in? So it's getting a little philosophical, but the second thing is just sticking to your plan.
Yeah.
And the third thing is they manage money extremely well. So no matter how great the opportunity is, no matter how juicy that burger is, they won't take more risk than expected. So Raghu's probably talked about this more times than I have, is that you don't want to lose a certain portion of your capital on any trade. Let's say it's 1 or 2%. Bad traders will believe more in a trade and take 10% risk, 20% risk on a single trade. These guys won't. The successful guys will continue to hold, keep the risk down to 1 or 2% no matter what, and and that's why they've survived. So those are the three things, Raghu. I hope that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm going to add one more question to that. It's kind of similar, but what are some like major mistakes that retail traders and investors make, especially like first time traders and investors, based on your experience and your conversations with all these stars?
Yeah, I think it's the opposite of whatever I said actually. So people go out asking people what stock should I buy, when you should actually be figuring out how do I start systematic trading. So you don't have to ask anyone. Anyone telling you what to trade is like a huge red flag. So just don't do that. The second thing is not being consistent. So you're trading or investing in a certain way for a few weeks or a few months. It doesn't seem to work initially, and you move on to another trading system. In an ideal case, you should, for example, come to LearnApp. I don't know if I should be saying this, but you come to LearnApp, you learn a system, you trade it, and then you leave, right? You just trade that system forever without trying out a new system. And I see this behavior on LearnApp as well, right? Users come, they learn new systems, and they keep learning new systems. Our job is to provide it, but it doesn't mean that you keep changing your system again and again. So, can you be consistent? You have to be. I remember I used to change my system every week. Has that happened with you, Raghu, as well? Like, have you gone through that? That okay, let's try something new next week. Let's tweak it next week. Did you ever go through that, or were you always focused?
No, me personally, I've never gone through that. I always, whenever I would devise systems, I would know what the parameters are, right? So once a certain drawdown has been reached, then you go back to the drawing board and you stop trading it, and then you go from there, right? Running multiple systems at the same time is a little counterintuitive, right? Because if you feel very confident about a system, then you should just trade it,
Yeah.
kind of go all out on it. But yeah, makes sense. That's that's a very good answer, obviously. And I think a lot of traders do make those mistakes, right? So I think that's something a lot of people can probably relate to. Let's talk about just the general landscape in India, right? So
Hmm.
one thing about you is you've been around the Indian markets for a while, and you've kind of seen like a lot of ups and downs over the years. How has the industry kind of changed over the past 5, 10 years, and what do you think is the current trend, which is going to kind of carry forward into the future?
Okay, generally trading speaking, right? Like how the
Yeah,
trading industry changed. Yeah, so I
yeah,
think the more obvious things, right? I think just like since trading was already online, the online participation just went crazy after COVID. But if you talk about the last 5 or 10 years, right, I think the major milestones. One was the introduction of getting brokers allowing you to trade and invest super easy, nice UI, beautifully looking, easily accessible. So that sort of opened the doors. But I think not a lot of people went through those doors when those products were built, and then COVID just freaking accelerated that and got lots of people, and like they say, the floodgates opened. But the problem I still think is that all these inexperienced people entered the markets not knowing what happens. And like we always see in all these bull market phases, is that people are entering while the market's going up, and they don't know what a loss is. They don't know what a drawdown is. They don't know what a bear market is. And when things turn around, I think a lot of people are going to be losing money because they're taking leverage. Another interesting thing about trading is that the new crop, right, the new millennials, they're moving towards crypto. So they're actually skipping mutual funds, fixed deposits, opening a bank account. Even trading, they're going straight to crypto, which to me is crazy, right? Because crypto is like bank nifty on steroids. you know, if you thought bank nifty moves a lot, like wait till you see crypto. So I think that's a new thing. And the
yeah,
interesting thing is it's decentralized. There's no regulation. A lot of crazy things happens. For example, Squid Games became popular, Raghu, right? And one coin called Squid went down 100%, and people don't know money management, etc. They just lost huge fortunes on that
Right.
meme coin. So I think the
Right.
same things we learned in stocks are applicable to crypto, but these guys don't know how it works. I think what's interesting is going to happen is that now people are interacting online. So if you had a social layer on top of, and Raghu will love me saying this, if you have a social layer on top of like traders and investors being able to interact, the only challenge here is you don't want to get scamsters in that social layer, right? So it's like Yahoo Answers versus Quora. Quora was a lot more refined when it joined versus Yahoo Answers, which had a lot of spam. So if someone can actually create a place where people can interact with each other, and like the scamsters are not there or very minimal, then that could be an interesting leap forward for people to have social learning. I think that could be super interesting. So I think like yeah, I think that could be interesting. So
Got it. That makes a lot of sense, man. And I really like that kind of social bit, right? You need those kind of restrictions in place to ensure that there's a proper protocol that's happening, and that the quality information is coming through, right? Um, let's talk about algorithmic trading, right? So obviously, you and I have spent a lot of time, devising systems together and things like that. Um, what has your personal association with systematic and algorithmic trading been over the years?
so I'll start my first like proper experience with algo trading was with Raghu. And Raghu was staying at my place at the time. Should I be talking about this, Raghu? He was staying
Sure,
in my
I
house.
don't care.
He was staying at
Yeah.
my house. We were staying together, and we were. There was this system that I told him. I'm like, dude, it's impossible for us to code this because, And he's like, no, no, no. If there's logic, it can be coded. And this guy did it on Excel, and I was just blown away. I was like, oh, you don't need to learn Python for this, and he's just done in Excel because it's pure logic and price, right? Now I look back, it's so simple. And we took that and we started to trade that algorithmically online. And what happened was, imagine if you're saving 10%, if you're having a 10% better execution. So you tried to enter at 100, but manually you were only able to enter at 100.10, which is a worse entry. So an algo could actually enter at 100 properly if you're able to code it well and if there's liquidity, etc. So your execution bit becomes super good, and that just changed everything because that just made the execution so good that the money was rolling in properly. And as humans, I don't think humans can execute consistently properly over a long period of time. A a, a machine has to do that. But everything before the execution, like what to trade, when to trade, the back testing bit, all of that has to be needs human ingenuity and human creativity. So you were talking about problems, right, Raghu? There's one more problem. People enter the market, they find out that there's something called algo trading. They don't create a system. They want to jump straight to execution, and they'll just lose money, right? Because if you automate a bad system, you've automated a money-losing machine. So execution is the end. I think first you need to figure this piece out of what to trade, how to trade, what's the back test, what's et cetera, et cetera, and then work on execution where you algo trade it. So I learned it with Raghu, and then we started trading via these APIs, and the execution is perfect. And then we optimized, and now I just don't spend any time on it at all. So I have three trading systems. One is intraday. Raghu knows that system. It shorts the market every single day, and that runs. It has up to a 3-month drawdown, which I'm totally fine. I also check my trading profits only maybe once or twice a month. I'm that attuned away from it. And that's really helped me personally because then I don't tinker with it. I don't worry about it. I only get alerts if a drawdown happens or if too much money is made compared to the average. That makes sense, right, Raghu? You
No,
only
it
need
makes a
to
lot of
know
sense. Yeah.
you only need to
Yeah.
know if something extreme happens. Otherwise, if it's business as usual, you shouldn't bother. Just like any business, right? I think they say as managers, don't micromanage your team. It's the same. Don't
Right.
micromanage your algo system, right? It's
Your
also
algo
the same.
systems, right? Makes a lot of
Um, so,
sense.
so yeah, I think, yeah. Oh,
No, so I think you're giving me a lot, way too much credit over here. But But I do remember those days. I think it was a lot of fun to build some of those systems with you. And you mentioned Excel, right? I think Excel is actually an amazing tool for people to use to just start messing around with data-driven investing and trading and building interesting models. Because what I like about Excel is you can see everything in front of you. You can
Yeah.
see everything visually, and you can spend hours on it, and it's pretty fun. It's a pretty fun activity. Let's stay on this topic of algo trading. Where do you see algorithmic trading, kind of going in the next few years in India?
Yeah, so it's actually quite easy to understand what could happen if you just dissect what algo trading is. So the three parts to algo trading. Part one is, does my system work or not? So if you have an exploration tool to sort of play around, just like we did, right, Raghu, on the Excel sheet, if there's a drag and drop place where I can sort of play around, and this has to be a really good system. There have been a lot of players who are trying to build this, but I don't think it's there yet. And you're able to backtest and figure out whether this works or not. Again, if you have a social layer over this helping you out build that system, that's interesting. The second part is then actually executing the trades. So this system also has to be super, super good. And then the third is, again, the social layer, the iteration part, that I want to improve the system or I want to create a second system. And then you have this infinite loop. So what companies will be able to build these platforms and how many people will be able to use it? And when I say algorithmic trading, I don't just mean trading, right? Algo investing also works. So going back to Raghu's question before this, he says, I talked about my first system, which is intraday. The other two are long-term systems. So they would have maybe 6 trades a year, the third system. The second system would have maybe 6 trades a quarter. And they look at something like a weekly time frame or a monthly time frame. But you've just automated the logic um, into a system, right? So you're able to do this across. Yeah, so I think if people can build these three pillars, then most people don't need to worry about the mechanics, and they can all like sort of automate their wealth. And yeah, that might be interesting. What do you think, Raghu? What's going to happen in the next 5-10 years?
I think there's going to be a huge proliferation, right? I think more and more brokers are going to start opening up their APIs, which is already happening, right? I think it's a one directional play. More and more brokers are going to start opening up their infrastructure to the retail segment. There's going to be more kind of third party ecosystems that come in, which piggyback off all this energy, and it's going to lead to more and more people at the retail level having their trades, taken algorithmically, right? And that can be themselves coding, right? And most people don't know how to code, right? So they're not going to know how to do that themselves. But
Right.
there's going to be other platforms which enable that whole thing to happen, right? Which, by the way, Rain is obviously trying to be, a part of, right? So that's kind of what we're trying to bet on as well. And what that does is it provides a lot of convenience to the end user. What you're saying is you don't have to make all those decisions by yourself. You can let the experts, make the decisions for you, or you can just, use the API and build, powerful strategies on your own, right? So that's what I think.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Actually, if you look at
yeah,
if you look at the year 2000, right, when the internet was like proliferating into the world, and everyone was like, the companies which were being funded to get more users into the internet. Um, you had Shopify, Amazon, WordPress saying you don't need to learn a code. We're the platform. You just bring what you want, and we'll help you enter the internet. I think the platformization, I know that's not a word, but the platformization of like algorithmic trading, investing, etc., is happening right now. So you don't need to worry about the mechanics of how the analysis happens. You can just come to this platform, do what you need to, and we'll help you on your way. So you're totally right. I think that's what's happening right now. And it'll just become commonplace that everyone obviously invests in the market and other assets easily, and there's not going to be a under penetration problem like we have right now.
100%. Cool. So let's get to the last question here, because
Super.
I know we're going to have multiple conversations. And so the last question for you, Prateek, is where do you see yourself and LearnApp in the next 5 years?
Oh, that's a really deep question. Cut.
Internet issues cut now.
No, so what's going to happen in the next 5 years is that LearnApp is going to be dominating finance in India, Europe, America, and the world. So any of the 300 million trading, investing, or crypto accounts who need to make decisions on their own will be using LearnApp to sort of augment their investments or trades. I think more in terms of 3 years. I think we'll be able to hit something like 1 million paid subscribers in the next 3 years. We're currently under a lakh, actually far away from a lakh. So reaching there in 3-4 years is quite a big moonshot. And I think everyone over here is just moving towards that number. I also think that the software that we're going to introduce, and I'm going to show you the software after the podcast, Raghu, is going to change the way we see online education. It's going to bring social and online skills to a level that no one has ever seen in the world. And I feel like if we're able to successfully do that, we will add other subjects such as communication, business, product management, marketing into the same LearnApp style, which is learning from the top leaders, actually interacting with them, have a community, and take away a skill that you can apply on Monday. You don't have to wait for 6 months of learning like traditional education, get a degree, and then go to an employer. You can actually upskill a little bit every weekend and start applying it Monday onwards. And I'm sure we'll look back at this podcast and say, oh, that's what he was talking about once that new platform is built and launched early next year.
That's amazing. Very ambitious goals, and I'm sure you'll hit all your goals. So very cool, Prateek. Thanks a lot, and talk soon.
Thanks so much.